Welcome back. If you haven't seen the introductory video, I encourage you to start there. It is kind of an overview and covers some things that we won't go into detail about here. I will just give a summary of what we said about culture, that it is a collective aggregate, which I guess is redundant, of a group's values, beliefs, and practices that kind of start from the bottom up, what they say is good, what they believe is true, and how they live that out. And it structures the group to kind of hold it together as it is and makes it unique. And each person is shaped most powerfully by the subculture of their family of origin. That's our first culture, our first subculture, because there we're taught what is good, whether it is actually good or not, whether we agree now or not. For however long you lived at home, 18, 20, 16, 25 years, maybe you're still there, you've heard messages talked in your ear and lived out in front of you. Sometimes they're consistent, sometimes they're hypocritical, sometimes there are things that are lived but not spoken, but there are still messages over and over and over as to what is good and what is true and how we're to live that out to kind of hold life together. And that shapes us, and it's inescapable, because you can't choose your family of origin. You can't choose where you grow up. It's just where you are. So you're a potato in a pot of stew that over time the stew begins to soak into you, and you start to taste like that until you get to a point where you realize, I want some of this and not some of it, and you choose, you self-manage to value, believe, or do other things. But there are generational patterns that generate our practices, beliefs, and values in basic areas. For example, gender roles and levels of intimacy. The way you saw your mother and father act, or your dad and his girlfriend, or your mom and her boyfriend, or whomever, tells you something about the roles of men and women. Because if you like what you saw and they seem to get along, it seemed to work, you'll tend to adopt that. If what they didn't seem to work because there was lots of conflict, or they never talked to each other, or they didn't look happy, then you may want to choose something else, which leads to the second point, conflict management within ourselves and between others. This is something that we experience in our family of origin. Do people kind of suck it up and drive on, as we say sometimes in the military, or do you say what's on your heart and on your mind and work it out with others? And to what degree? How do you work it out? Is there a peace offering? Is there a genuine dialogue of talking back and forth? Does one person get their way because they make the money, or they have the title in the house, or other ways to manage conflict, which may or may not be healthy? So all those things are, again, demonstrated and spoken, and we grow up in that soup. Attitudes toward work and leisure. Do we live to work, or do we work to live? Do we live to play? Or is play life? And that will reflect itself. Maybe one of your parents or both did the minimum of 40 hours a week and they lived for the weekend. Or maybe they're workaholics and they never took time off, or something in between. And again, if you saw that work for them or appear to work for them, you're more likely to adopt it. If it caused a lot of problems, you're more likely to swing in a different direction to do something different in the hopes of getting something different. Social aspirations and strategies. What did they say is worth striving for? Is it more money? Is it a title? Is it reputation? Is it some type of legacy? And it may or may not be a reflection of work at all. It could be something entirely different. But what they shoot for and how they do it, if you saw that as beneficial to the family, that they had more friends, they had more respect, they seemed to have more peace of mind, they enjoyed life, then you will probably do something like that. If you saw problems with it, you'll probably do something different. Trauma management of emergencies and social stigmas. How do they deal with difficulty? This is different than conflict management. Conflict management is more the process of conflict in general, and everybody has conflict day to day. But we don't all have trauma. We don't always have emergencies. So when something completely rocked their world, that they had a square around life, that this is what life looks like, and that broke wide open or was thrown to the side, how did they respond? What really came out once the box was cracked open? What did you see? Who did they call on to help? How did that change the way they saw each other or treated each other? Those things, those paradigm shifts of reality can be shaping too. So those are just some of the things we experience in our family of origin. And one tool for self-discovery of your family of origin is a genogram, which can be confirmed by close family and friends. Now, I've done separate videos, I think one video on a genogram, and you can look that up. Just look up the keywords Chaplain Dillard and genogram on YouTube, and it'll come up for you. It'll give you an example of one. But it's at least 3 generations, your grandparents to your parents to you, and the siblings, and some key things in there. And those generational patterns tend to shape who we are. And we either like what we received and we tend to repeat it, or we don't like what we received and we tend to want something else. If you haven't seen previous videos where I define emotional intelligence, I'll define it for you here, because it's important to realize or to remember the 4 key components, cumulative processes for emotional intelligence. First is self-awareness. What shaped me, and this is one application of emotional intelligence, what was my family of origin that made me who I am? So it's self-awareness of that. The second is self-management. Once I know who I am and what I believe and value, my willingness and ability to choose to accept that or do something different. Third is empathy, because if I'm not self-aware, I can't manage, and I won't be able to empathize or connect with others who grew up in a different subculture. And fourth is influence. I can't influence them if I can't connect with them. So all this to say, if you're going to be moving into a different job in a different country, if you're going to move your family to a different state, if you're going to take up a different hobby in a very different group of people, it's important to know who you are first so that you can decide or see, are you going to fit with them? But of course, the other part of that is knowing who they are. And we'll cover that in another video. Hope to see you then.